I used to believe that truth was a light, that no matter how deep the shadows, how dark the lies, truth would eventually shine through. Now I know better. Truth isn't light, it's fire. And if you stare too long, it burns everything you loved. It started 3 nights ago, with a message that shouldn't have existed. No sender, no subject, just a small encrypted file titled truth_001.mp4.at. First, I thought it was junk. I deal with data breaches for a living. My inbox is a graveyard of broken secrets and corrupted drives. But this one was personal. The encryption key wasn't random. It was my husband's date of death, 21/04/2021. I remember staring at those numbers for a long time, hands trembling above the keyboard. David had been gone for 3 years. A car crash, they said. The explosion was so violent they never recovered much of him. I buried an empty coffin. So when that file demanded his death date to open, I hesitated. But curiosity is a disease I've never been cured of. I typed it in. The screen flickered. A grainy black and white video appeared. The image was shaky, filmed from the corner of a small room. Someone, a man, sat tied to a chair, blood on his lip, his breathing slow, heavy. It took me less than a second to recognize him. David. Alive. He lifted his head, and the sound that escaped my mouth wasn't a scream. It was something between disbelief and grief. "Emma," he whispered. His eyes searched the darkness as if he could see me. "They're watching. Don't trust anyone. Not even me." And then the video cut to static. I replayed it again, and again, until the tears blurred the screen. The timestamp on the corner read 2 weeks ago. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor, lights off, laptop open, replaying his face over and over like a prayer and a curse. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I'm not just a widow. I'm an analyst for the European Cybercrime Task Force. I've spent 10 years tracing deepfakes, leaks, encrypted files buried behind proxy chains. But I had never seen encryption like this. It wasn't amateur work. It was government grade, military, even. I searched the metadata. The video had been routed through a server in Luxembourg, then vanished through something called Mirror Vault. That name made my stomach twist. Mirror Vault wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It was a darknet marketplace for selling classified data, banned years ago. Still, I knew where to look. When I logged in through an old access tunnel, the familiar chill ran through me. Everything was the same, the pitch-black interface, the cryptic usernames, the silence. And then I saw it. User, Holosaint post. Truth_001. The first key. Buyer must know the phrase Elysium Protocol. Elysium Protocol. The words hit me like ice water. David had whispered that name once, late one night. I'd asked what it meant. He'd only smiled and said, "It's about building heaven from code." That was 2 weeks before the accident. Now 3 years later, those same words resurfaced, attached to his living image. I typed a reply under a fake account. "I know the phrase. I want the rest." Minutes later, a response appeared. "You already have more than you should. The truth killed him once. Are you sure you want to resurrect it?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "If he's alive, I'll find him." That night, another file arrived in my inbox. Truth_002.mp for the same static. The same strange flicker of light. This time, it showed a city street. Somewhere in Berlin. A man in a dark coat walking fast, head down. Even through the distortion, I could tell that it was David again. But then the camera panned. Someone was following him. A woman. Blonde hair, long coat. Same height, same posture. My heart clenched. It was me. Or someone who looked exactly like me. I stopped breathing. The video zoomed closer, as if whoever filmed it wanted me to see. The woman's reflection flashed briefly in a window. Same face, same eyes. And she was smiling. I don't remember how long I sat there. The walls felt smaller, the air heavier. There was only one thought echoing in my skull. What if I'm not the real Emma? That question followed me into every mirror, every sound. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt like it was whispering. I packed a small bag, my passport, my Glock, and the laptop, and booked a ticket to Berlin under a fake name. When the plane took off, I watched the clouds swallow London below that it felt like leaving myself behind. Berlin was colder than I remembered to be by the time I reached Kreuzberg. Dusk had turned the city into a collage of neon and fog that I went straight to the location from the video's GPS. An old government building that had been abandoned since 2013 that the door was half open, wind breathing through the halls. Inside, it smelled like rust and dust and secrets. On the third floor, I found the same wallpaper from the first video. A chair, ropes on the floor, dried blood, and on the wall scrawled in white chalk 3 words, Elysium lives on. I took out my flashlight and froze. Footsteps. Someone was in there with me. A figure stepped from the shadows, thin, pale, terrified. I know who you are, he said. Then you know I'm not here to play games. He nodded quickly, eyes darting around. You shouldn't have come. They already know you opened the files. Who's they? I demanded. He handed me something, a small black data chip. Everything you're looking for is on this. David tried to shut them down. That's why they erased him. Erased. They don't kill anymore, Emma. They overwrite. Before I could ask what he meant, a red dot appeared on his chest. A silenced gunshot cracked the air. He fell instantly. I dove behind a broken cabinet as another shot shattered the light bulb above me. I fired back, but whoever it was, they were already gone. The echo of footsteps faded, leaving me alone with the corpse and the chip. My hands were shaking when I plugged it into my laptop that night in a cheap hotel near Alexanderplatz. It took hours to decrypt. But when it finally loaded, a single audio file played. David's voice. If you're hearing this, they've found me. The Elysium Protocol wasn't just intelligence research. It was replacement. They're building doubles, biological and digital. Copies that can live, breathe. Remember. You were part of it, Emma. You just didn't know. Then silence. And faintly in the background, my own voice. David, shut it down before they replace you. I stopped the playback, numbed at my own voice. My tone. My words. But I had never said them. I looked up and saw my reflection in the hotel window, distorted by rain. For a second, I could swear it smiled back at me. Rain hit the glass like static. Sharp, endless, and rhythmic, as if the city itself was breathing through interference. I hadn't moved for hours. The recording looped in my head, David's voice twisting around my thoughts like barbed wire. They're building doubles, biological and digital. You were part of it, Emma. You just didn't know. It made no sense. I'd never been part of any classified research, never signed anything related to biogenetics or artificial identity. I worked in cyberforensics, for God's sake. Unless my memory wasn't entirely mine. The laptop chimed, a new message, anonymous. No subject. No text. Just coordinates. They led to the edge of the city, near the old Spree River docks. By the time I got there, the fog was thick enough to swallow light. A single warehouse stood against the gray sky, its windows blacked out. Its silence almost deliberate. I broke in through a side door. The air was cold and chemical, like something was still being manufactured there. Rows of machines stood humming softly. On each screen, human faces, some sleeping, some moving, and then my own. Dozens of me. Different hair lengths, subtle facial shifts, but all of them, me, each one labeled EM_01, _02. EM_47. The room tilted. I felt the edges of reality fold in on themselves. A monitor flickered on automatically. And there he was again, David, looking straight into the camera. Emma, he said, if you're here, then they've failed to stop you. Listen carefully. The Elysium Protocol was never about creating perfection. It was about control. Governments wanted agents who could infiltrate, influence, disappear, and be replaced without anyone knowing. They built synthetic doubles and mapped them with the memories of real people. Your memories. He paused. His eyes were glassy, haunted. You volunteered once. You just don't remember. The video cut. I stumbled back, clutching my chest. Volunteered? That couldn't be true. I'd never. A whisper interrupted my thought. I wouldn't be so sure. I turned, and there she was. My double. The one from the Berlin footage. Same face. Same voice. But something in her eyes was wrong. Too calm, too empty. She smiled. You shouldn't have come here, Emma. Who the hell are you? I'm what you were supposed to become. She stepped closer. Every movement mirrored mine perfectly. It was like watching myself through glass. They made you forget because you were unstable. You kept asking questions. They couldn't risk it. But they didn't destroy you. They archived you. The memory you call your life is just a construct copied from the original code. I aimed my gun. If I'm the copy, then what are you? I'm the improvement. She lunged, faster than any human could. I fired twice, one shot hitting her shoulder. Sparks flew, not blood. She wasn't even fully biological. Underneath the skin circuitry, synthetic tissue. I ran. The alarm blared through the facility, red lights flashing like veins of panic. As I reached the exit, I looked back one last time, at a wall lined with containment pods, each labeled Elysium Successor. Each with a face waiting inside. Not just me, dozens of others. Men, women, politicians, soldiers, journalists. People I'd seen on screens. Elysium wasn't replacing individuals. IT was rewriting humanity. Outside, I could still hear the echo of her footsteps chasing me. The clone version of myself, more efficient, more obedient. I escaped into the night, bleeding adrenaline, clutching the data drive I'd ripped from the terminal. Hours later, I hid in a cheap hostel near the outskirts. I plugged the drive into a burner laptop. IT held files labeled Memory Construction /EM Project /Emotional Override Algorithms. Inside were logs and a list of names. Politicians, CEOs, military personnel, and one name that made my breath stop. Emma Hartley. Status discontinued. Replacement active. That's when it hit me. The agency hadn't lost contact with me because of security clearance. They'd stopped responding because they already had another me inside. If you're hearing this, remember, the worst kind of death isn't the one that takes your life. It's the one that takes your story. If stories like this fascinate you, the kind that make you question what's real and what's built, subscribe to Elite Secrets. Because truth doesn't live on the surface. It hides, in codes, in faces, in us. Morning came slow. I'd barely slept. Every reflection felt like a threat. Mirrors, windows, even puddles on the street. Everywhere I turned, I half expected to see her face again. By noon, I made contact with an old friend, or someone I hoped was still one. Lucas Meyer, former intelligence officer turned whistleblower. He owed me once. After I helped him vanish from Interpol's radar. He met me in a coffee shop near Checkpoint Charlie. He looked older, harder. When I told him what I'd found, he didn't laugh. He didn't doubt. He simply said, they finally activated it. You know about Elysium? Everyone in Black Ops whispered about it. A shadow program to eliminate human error. Replace agents with programmable bodies. But it went offline years ago, or so we thought. I leaned closer. They replaced David. Lucas's eyes flicked to the window. Then you're next. He slid an old ID badge across the table. Federal Bioengineering Directorate. Backside coordinates. Go there. It's where the originals were stored before shutdown. Why help me? He smiled faintly. Because I've seen what they do when they're done using you. When I reached the coordinates that evening, it was already raining again. The building looked abandoned, shattered windows, vines crawling over the stone. Inside, dust hung like memory. Old machinery still hummed in the dark, feeding on residual power. And in the center, a single operating table. A body on it. A woman. I approached slowly. My knees almost gave out. It was me. Cold. Still. A scar along the temple, where something had been extracted. I touched her hand. My hand. It was cold, but real. Flesh. Bone. The realization hit like a wave of nausea. I wasn't Emma Hartley. I was her continuation. For a long time I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at the still body on the table, my own body. The air was cold enough to sting, but I barely felt it. It was her, me, the real Emma Hartley. Or maybe I was real. Maybe she was just an earlier version that failed. In the corner of the room, monitors flickered to life. Lines of code scrolled across the screens like veins of light, and then David's face appeared. "Emma," he said softly, "if you've reached this point, then the truth can't be stopped anymore." He looked older, tired. His voice cracked between guilt and exhaustion. "I didn't die in that car crash. I made it look that way, because Elysium wasn't just replacing agents. It was replacing souls. They were trying to digitize consciousness, transfer it into synthetic hosts. You were the first test subject who survived the process. But you weren't supposed to remember." I stepped closer to the screen. "You did this to me? I saved you." "Saved me? You turned me into an experiment." His silence said everything that I wanted to scream, to destroy the monitors, to erase his face from existence. But the truth chained me still. "Why?" I whispered. "Because you were dying, Emma. The accident was real. You were gone before the medics arrived. I couldn't let go. I uploaded you into the prototype shell, the EM_01. But the agency found out. They wanted to use you. I had to run." The feed glitched. His voice fractured. "They've built more of you. Versions with no memory, no conscience. But you're the only one that's still you. You're the key to stopping them." Then the screen went black for a moment. Only the hum of old machines remained. Then another sound rose. The soft click of heels. She stepped into the light again, my double. The upgraded version. EM_47. "You shouldn't have found this place," she said. "Neither should you." She smiled faintly. "We can't both exist." "Maybe not." I drew my gun, but she was faster, always faster. The bullet grazed her shoulder. She didn't flinch. Her movements were mechanical, precise, almost graceful. She lunged. The impact threw me against the console. Sparks exploded as her hand crushed the monitor beside my face. "David chose wrong," she hissed. "He built you with emotion. Weakness. I was designed to replace you completely." We struggled, our reflections blurring in the cracked glass. Two versions of the same person fighting for a single identity. She slammed me to the floor. I grabbed a broken wire, jabbed it into her side. Electricity hissed through her frame. She screamed. Not like a machine, but like a person who finally understood pain. Then silence. Her eyes flickered. Her lips trembled. "It's not fair," she whispered, voice breaking into static. "We both wanted to live." I held her as she collapsed, sparks fading beneath her skin. Her last words echoed in my head long after she went still. "We both wanted to live." I don't remember how long I sat there. Outside, dawn was rising. The kind of pale gray light that feels more like surrender than hope. On the console, one last message appeared. Elysium main server online. Remote access enabled. A password prompt blinked. I typed the only thing that made sense. David Hartley. The system opened. Thousands of profiles scrolled across the screen, faces, identities, consciousness logs. They had replicated not just people, but governments, corporations, control. Everything. I uploaded a virus, a digital burn code designed to dismantle every copy, every replica, every digital ghost pretending to be human. As I hit enter, alarms blared across the complex. But I didn't stop. If I was synthetic, then maybe this was my purpose, to end what made me. The building shuddered, lights bursting one by one. I could hear distant voices, security units activating. Maybe the next versions of me coming online. I whispered to the empty room. "I'm not your creation. I'm your ending." The explosion tore through the walls, devouring everything, the clones, the servers, the ghosts of who we were. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed. The air smelled of antiseptic and burnt plastic. A nurse hovered nearby. "Where am I?" I croaked. "Geneva," she said. "You were found near the border. Do you remember your name?" I hesitated. My reflection in the glass panel stared back. Bruised human, but whose memory was it now? "Emma Hartley," I said finally. She smiled. "Rest now, Miss Hartley." As she left, I turned toward the bedside monitor. It flickered once. Static. Then David's voice, faint but clear. "You can't destroy what's already inside you." The screen went dark outside, thunder rolled across the Alps, and somewhere far below, A new data center came online. A single message blinked into the mainframe. Truth_004 before uploaded successfully. The file showed a woman in a white hospital gown sitting on a bed. She smiled faintly and said, "Everything ends where it begins." Then she leaned closer to the camera. My eyes, looked directly at the viewer. If you're still watching, ask yourself this. How do you know you're real? Static silence, and the faint echo of a voice, mine, whispering, "Subscribe to Elite Secrets. The next story might already be yours."